Hello. So, what is the story? You've been with the mushrooms along. It seems like you are loving mushroom, you're cooking mushroom, and I think you are selling also. So, what it is started? How does it started? What is going on between you and mushrooms?
Yeah, well, cool. Thanks for inviting me on your podcast. It's nice to meet you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my background is I grew up in Texas in the United States, so have a lot of barbecue in my culture, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up out in West Texas, which is out where there's a lot of petroleum. It's the Permian Basin where all the oil comes out. And
Mm-hmm.
my youth, I didn't have much exposure to mushrooms, but as I moved away from there, I wanted to get educated in chemical engineering so that I could go back into the oil field and make a lot of money because you have two options really when you work in the oil field. You can go break your back and make a lot of money that way, or you can go in there with
Mm-hmm.
the science and make a lot of money straight out of university. So my initial studies are in chemical engineering. And
Mm-hmm.
while I was studying chemical engineering, I was a fine dining chef. So I worked at a restaurant in San Antonio, Texas,
Mm-hmm.
a James Beard nominated place that allowed me to get exposure to a lot of new and different ingredients that you don't normally come across. But one of the main things that I came across was mushrooms, and found that as an ingredient, they gave a lot of opportunities to cook different tastes and textures and colors. And they were one of the things that made people react
Mm-hmm.
um, very strongly. So if they weren't cooked perfectly, people might have a bad experience and tell you, "Oh, I really don't like mushrooms." But if they were cooked very well, people would often tell you, "Oh, I absolutely love mushrooms. Mushrooms are amazing," and they elevate most things. Like they're a good
Mm-hmm.
background for any sort of meat, chicken, fish. So that's kind of where I got my first real interaction with them, and then later on I met a girl online who lives in Australia, and that's why I live here. Because
Mm-hmm.
in the mid '90s, we were talking online, and she actually moved over to the States.
Mm-hmm.
We were together there for a very long time while I got my degree in chemical engineering and while I was working as a chef. And we applied for a visa to come back here to Australia, but it took a really long time. So what happened is she got a job offer out in California, and I still didn't have my visa. So we followed her opportunity out there. And instead of going into back into fine dining or going to do something to pursue chemical engineering, because that was all about the oil field, I actually just went
Mm-hmm.
online and looked for a job sort of as a science job in the area of the North California. And they have a site over there called Craigslist, and on Craigslist, they were looking
Mm-hmm.
for a spawn supervisor on a mushroom farm. And I didn't know what that was, but it sounded really cool. And I, wanted to
Mm-hmm.
go get the title of spawn supervisor. And I went to work on
Mm-hmm.
that mushroom farm. And yeah, I just absolutely fell in love with not only the actual growing of mushrooms, but the whole industry and everything about it. I got to work
Mm-hmm.
on a Japanese bottle farm, which we brought in raw materials in one end, and through a very efficient process, like of clockwork timing. You know how the Japanese precision is. You bring
Yeah,
in raw
the
materials, yeah, and go through all the processes, and then have like clockwork timing of carpets of mushrooms growing. I just fell
Mhm,
absolutely in love with that, and we grew 6 different culinary varieties of mushrooms there.
mhm,
It's called gourmet mushrooms, and also 47 different nutraceutical varieties. So all these different
mhm,
medicinal mushrooms, which have some functionality, which spoke to me on a chemistry level. It spoke to me on a functional level. It spoke to me on a food level.
mhm,
And not only did I live and work on a mushroom farm, but living in the North Bay area of San Francisco, it rains 9 months out of the year. So not only
mhm,
did I live
mhm,
and work there, but I took on the hobby of going and learning about hunting the mushrooms in nature and applying,
mhm,
Latin binomial and taxonomy to them. There's something so lovely and primitive and and fulfilling about being able to walk through nature and find something and know what it is, and know that it's either
Mhm.
something that's super valuable or super nutritious, or even something that could kill you, that could be super dangerous if,
Mhm.
if in the wrong hands. So that's just a lovely aspect of what I fell down the rabbit hole of. And yeah, my career from there was all about mushrooms. Everything from that moment has been, something to do with mushrooms.
Mhm. When you've been working over there, all these mushrooms were just edible, or how was it? Like, my first experience with the mushrooms comes with the psilocybin. I mean, the
Mm,
magic mushrooms, basically.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
we cook mushrooms in India, and I was
yeah.
not knowing there are multiple types of mushrooms are there. And what happened is that I was living in a one place in Bangalore, and there is all of a sudden this magic mushrooms start to pop
Mm,
up in the garden. And
yeah.
the lady, she's taking care of this particular garden. She made the mushroom to be eaten by a cat, and this cat was crazily jumping afterwards, like, and that is when I came to know about these mushrooms are really
Right.
powerful. You see, so when you're growing these mushrooms, this was the you all the mushrooms were just edible or any other kind of properties. For example, there are rishi mushrooms that
Yeah,
will actually increase the increase the limit of your aging, like, you can
yeah,
become more younger and stuffs like that.
yeah,
So what was the
yeah.
story there, like,
Yeah, well, at that particular farm, like I said, we grew 6 different culinary edible species of
Mhm.
mushrooms, but they also were regularly growing 47 different nutraceutical varieties, so ones that were made just for their medicinal properties.
Mhm.
And they had a catalog of a lot more than that, but those were the ones that they regularly grew. So as I got exposure on that farm to medicinal mushrooms, yeah, of course, it was reishi, cordyceps,
Mhm.
so many different aspects like hericium. This long before lion's mane was even really widely known, and this was 20 years ago now.
Mhm.
I was learning about how to grow the mycelium for them and turn that into a nutraceutical product. But
Mhm.
oysters, turkey tail, lion's mane, reishi, ganoderma, like a whole list of these things. And you can't see what all these books are behind me, but they're all related to
Mhm.
something to do with functional mushrooms. So mushrooms are known to do all kinds of things. Like you said, the reishi is used as
Mhm.
a long life tonic, or it's sometimes called the fountain of youth mushroom. But cordyceps,
Mhm.
which there are different species of cordyceps all over the world, but it's a very cool one with a lot of history and lore about its ability to give you longevity in exercise and increase your VO2 max, endurance, and stamina. And also, it's marketed as herbal Viagra. So, there in India,
Mhm.
you have
Mhm.
at the back, you have Uttarakhand. Actually, I'm headed over to Uttarakhand in maybe a week and a half. I'm going to go visit my friend. He has a mushroom farm in Uttarakhand.
Mhm.
And, that's not too far away on the Himalayas, where they actually hunt cordyceps
Mhm.
fungi, and they sell that from there. But yeah, there's so many different functional types of mushrooms, and they are so powerful in so many different ways. And psilocybin is absolutely one of the
Mhm.
first mushrooms that a lot of people get exposure to, because it shakes you to make you wake up. It shakes you to say,
Mhm. Yeah,
this is
they
super
will.
powerful stuff.
That's exactly like, when I had the psilocybin first time, it was there in the garden, and my
Mm,
vision has changed a lot after that. Like,
yeah,
for it give me some 2-3 hours. I think my perception has changed for some two three
yeah.
hours. Then after that, I think it was in one of the rainbow gathering in the Himalayas, basically. So this guy, he came from US, and he was having a bottle of American mushroom, and
Mm,
from there I started to learn how to do the microdosing. So, but
okay.
it is really, pleasant, basically. And
Yeah,
recently in Kerala, the High Court made it is legal, basically. So
that's great.
there is, yeah, not everywhere in India, only in Kerala.
Okay. In
Hmm.
Kerala.
Yeah, exactly. So not in the commercial quantity, but you
Mm,
can, I mean, consumable quantity, like for one
yeah.
person or something like that. So
Yeah.
this is become legal over here, and when we are talking about the mushroom, like, can you show these images, whether it is possible in your laptop, or if you want, I can search for that, like.
You want to see an image of a psilocybin mushroom or of a different type of mushroom?
Different types of mushroom, because many of the listeners may not be knowing the properties of the mushrooms and different types of mushroom. For example, this mushrooms glows in the dark. Some of the
Yeah.
mushrooms which is not everywhere available, and there is one of the mushroom which is actually very expensive. That is in the Nepal, not in India, in Himalayan region,
Yeah,
things
that's the
like that, and
cordyceps.
cordyceps. Okay.
Yeah. All
So
right. Yeah,
I
I'm pulling up some and I can show them.
Yeah, yeah.
Cordyceps mushrooms. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I will bring up a couple of different things. So should I share my screen? I can present here.
Yes, exactly.
Share screen. Okay. Yeah. All right. So first, I'm going to share.
I think I cannot see this.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you see now? There we go.
Yes, yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So this is actually my company. This is called
Mm-hmm.
Fable, and you see Fable on my shirt here. This is the website that we have. It's at fablefood.co, and this shows our products are made from shiitake mushrooms. And
Mm-hmm.
we've got one of the world's best chefs there, Heston Blumenthal. You see Zac Efron there with me. We're on the Netflix
Mm-hmm.
program Down to Earth. You can see we're at retailers and restaurants all over the world. So we're based in Australia, but we sell in Australia, Singapore, United Kingdom,
Mm-hmm.
and also USA. So we've got a lot of different things
Mm-hmm.
there. In here, you can sort of go to a locator to find it, all the recipes. But you see where I'm putting my mouse there. That's what Fable looks like. It looks like meat.
Mm-hmm.
I have
Mm-hmm.
developed a mushroom based meat. So that's what my business is, and my
Mm-hmm.
long passion with mushrooms has led to me creating, you see it says Jim's Secret Texas Barbecue Style. So like I said, I'm from Texas. The reason I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
create mushroom based meat was because I went vegan for a year, and I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to make a product so that I could enjoy the meaty, delicious tastes of meat, but not have to actually kill anything to do it. So that's the background
Mm-hmm.
on my business. Now I'll show you some images here of shiitake mushroom. You can see lots of different things here, and I'm just going to zoom in. So I'll zoom in on this so you can see mushroom stem here. Where I'm putting my mouse, and it's
Uh,
taking a while to go onto the screen. Let's
okay.
see. Why? Oh, because I'm only sharing that screen. I need to
Mm-hmm.
change the screen that I'm sharing. I'm sorry about that. So let me stop that one and then change to another screen. Okay. Now I will share the shiitake mushroom screen. Here we go. So shiitake mushrooms are what I make Fable out of. And here you have pictured, this is a very
Uh,
famous mushroom in Asia.
mm-hmm.
It's very, very strong glutamates, very strong umami, and that makes a wonderful thing to make mushroom meat from, because it's got a very
Mm-hmm.
meaty texture. So if you see where my
Mm-hmm.
mouth is over
The
here, I've got
taste
really long
also,
stems. Go
uh,
ahead.
it tastes like meat actually, like kind
Well,
of buffalo meat or.
it's a very strong taste as it is, but when you cook it, and this is a
Mm-hmm.
bit of my background, is I have a culinary background and I have a chemical engineering background. So I
Mm-hmm.
can manipulate the way that they taste by cooking, and with the full understanding of, you need to change the mushroom taste to a meaty taste. That means essentially there's a cooking reaction called the Maillard reaction that
Mm-hmm.
changes mushroom taste to generic meaty taste. And that's what I do, because they have such a high amount of glutamic acid, glutamates. That's the
Mm-hmm.
umami thing. You can cook them so that they do taste like meat. But whenever
Mm-hmm.
they're raw, they don't taste like meat. They taste almost like very sulfuric. You think of like sulfur, like cooked eggs, sulfur gas,
Mm-hmm.
sulfuric. If you have to cook that out, but once you cook that out, they have a very earthy, deep umami taste. So yeah, this is what shiitake look like, and this is what they look like when they grow.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lovely silky cap, but what we do is we actually use the stem
This
of the
is
shiitake
actually
mushroom.
regional specific mushroom. Like for example, this will only grow in the parts of the Texas only.
No, no. So this one grew in the wild of all over Asia, and it
Mm-hmm.
actually grows in nature in Australia and on different continents. But this is the second most widely cultivated mushroom in the world. So people who grow
Mm-hmm.
mushrooms, the big commercial farmers, they this is the second largest one in the world. The other one is called agaricus. It's the white button mushroom. I'll
Mm-hmm.
show you agaricus because agaricus is also becoming famous in India. This white button mushroom, agaricus white button.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. This is commonly grown everywhere. There are a lot of places it is actually grown.
Yeah, yeah, you can see here
Yeah.
like what they look
The
like in
buds.
cultivation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
buds and farms.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
whenever I'm gonna travel to Uttarakhand in a week and a half, I'm gonna go visit a mushroom farm that grows this mushroom there. Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
that's the white button mushroom. Now, there's the one that you were talking about before. You were talking about reishi mushroom,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll just pull that up, and you can see these have a very interesting shape. They call this one a kidney shape, and if you can
Mm-hmm.
kind of see the kidney look there. Um,
This is
and
everywhere in the place which I am right now.
yeah,
It
yeah,
generally
this is
comes out from the wood which is actually decaying. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a wood growing mushroom. Most of the ones that grow in that Asia has cultivated is cultivated from wood. So in the
Mm-hmm.
rest of the world, everyone calls those exotic mushrooms or wood loving mushrooms. And then the agaricus ones that we were looking at before, they grow on compost. So they grow on like wheat straw that's been composted,
Mm-hmm.
so not on wood. There are lots of different types of mushrooms that grow in nature. Um, all the ones that are farmed are
Mm-hmm.
they're decomposers, so they grow on dead and decaying organic material. But there are mushrooms like the high value ones, porcini. I'll show you porcini mushroom. This one is really high value, but you can't grow this on compost. You don't grow this on decaying wood. This
Mm-hmm.
actually grows underneath the trees, and you need the tree to be alive for this mushroom to grow. And this one you can get up to $300 or $400 per kilo because it's wild. It only comes around
Mm-hmm.
in a season, and you must go to the woods to find this. So these are called mycorrhizal mushrooms. Myco is for mushroom, rhizal is for root. So
Mm-hmm.
mushroom root, you must have the plant alive so that you can go harvest these. And another very famous, expensive one is called the chanterelle mushroom. This is also another very expensive mushroom because it grows only in the wild. You would probably see this in the rainforests.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very common all around the world. But this one you can get, a couple of $100 per kilo for this mushroom too. But that's because it's rare and it's wild only. You can't
It's
grow them
a
in a
kind of
farm.
lichen. It's a kind of lichen, like jelly kind of
No,
stuff.
so lichen is a different thing. Lichen is a combination of two different things. It's a fungus
Mm-hmm.
and a bacteria. But this is it's like it requires the two different um, organisms to grow, but this is all just one organism. So the mushroom itself is an
Mm-hmm.
organism that's working in symbiosis with the tree organism. So these would be growing, underneath redwoods or something like that. And here you can look like, and probably like a birch. You can see that it
Mm-hmm.
might be a birch tree that's growing under this one. These are definitely, you see the little needles there. These are growing under redwood.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. So these are what we would call mycorrhizal mushrooms. All the ones that are grown on a mushroom farm are called saprophytes. Those are the decayer mushrooms. And then the other
Mm-hmm.
ones, the really interesting ones, are parasites. So you talked about this before. The ones that are growing in Nepal, up in the
Mm-hmm.
Himalayas, the cordyceps mushrooms. So this is the very
Yeah, the
common.
long one, exactly. The yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah.
I
Yeah,
say
yes,
very
I
common.
remember.
It's not very
Yeah.
common. This is very rare mushroom to have, but it's very common
Mm-hmm.
in traditional Chinese medicine. The most
Mm-hmm.
valuable ingredient in all of the world. This can be up to 200,000 US dollars per kilo. Very,
Wow.
very, very expensive. Yeah, and people go
This
all the
is
way
this
up
is this
to
is really I saw this in Nepal actually. Like
mm,
we can get this stuff.
lucky.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very
yeah,
lucky if
yeah.
you find this because some
Uh-huh.
people spend a few weeks a year going to hunt this mushroom and they make more money in those few weeks than
Mm.
they make the entire year doing anything else because it's so valuable. Yeah,
Wow,
in
wow.
Nepal, Bhutan,
Mm-hmm.
on the other side in Qingdao, um, in China. So all through the Himalayas, these are a very high altitude moth
Mm-hmm.
that inhabits this high altitude, and the fungus must consume the larvae of the moth. So you see what that's a larvae. It's like a worm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The fungus has consumed the worm. So it's no more any worm material there. It's totally converted to fungus. So they call this the zombie mushroom because before
Wow.
the mushroom consumes the worm, it first gets into its brain and drives it around like a zombie. So this is called zombie
Mm-hmm.
fungus. And there are lots of
Mm-hmm.
different interesting cultural things that have come from the zombie fungus. Have you heard of the show or the game The Last of Us?
Not so sure.
That's this game. It's the
Haha.
most popular Sony PlayStation video game ever, and they
Mm-hmm.
turned it into a HBO series. So it
Mm-hmm.
is a post-apocalyptic zombie game, and it
Mm-hmm.
is now a zombie series. It's called The Last of Us, but it's based on cordyceps infecting humans. Now there are no cordyceps mushrooms that can infect animals, but right now they can infect
Mm-hmm.
any of the insect world. Could you see um, if I were to play this, could you see and hear that? Because this is a very, very good video.
Okay, okay.
Let's try.
Yeah.
Can you hear that?
No, I think you opened it in another tab.
Okay, so let me close this tab and then I'll open that other one. So let's stop sharing here and then we will do a share on the next one. Let's see if we can get that here.
Experts.
We don't.
Incredibly,
Yeah, check this out.
80% of all insects live in jungles. Few are more successful than the ants. There can be 8 million individuals in a single hectare. But jungle ants don't have it all their own way.
Can you hear the audio?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
These bullet ants are showing some worrying symptoms. Spores from a parasitic fungus called cordyceps have infiltrated their bodies and their minds. Its infected brain directs this ant upwards. Then, utterly disorientated, it grips a stem with its mandibles. Those afflicted that are discovered by the workers are quickly taken away and dumped far away from the colony. It seems extreme, but this is the reason why. Like something out of science fiction, the fruiting body of the cordyceps erupts from the ant's head.
Mm-hmm.
It can take 3 weeks to grow, and when finished, the deadly spores will burst from its tip. Then any ant in the vicinity will be in serious risk of death. The fungus is so virulent it can wipe out whole colonies of ants. And it's not just ants that fall victim to this killer. There are literally thousands of different types of cordyceps fungi, and remarkably, each specializes on just one species. But these attacks do have a positive effect on the jungle's diversity, since parasites like these stop any one group of animal getting the upper hand. The more numerous a species becomes, the more likely it will be attacked by its nemesis, a cordyceps fungus.
Yeah. So that is the parasite. We
Mm-hmm.
talked about the different ones, the decaying ones, so they grow on
Mm-hmm.
things that are like fallen trees. Then there's the ones who work together with the trees to keep the tree alive, and the tree gives the sugars to the mushroom, and the mushroom gives like minerals and water back to the tree. And then you have the parasites who only take and
Mm-hmm.
kill. So three different
Okay.
ways that mushrooms get their nutrition and feed essentially the ecosystem.
So this particular mushroom kills the entire colony of the ant, basically.
Well, it keeps the balance in check. So it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily always kill whole colonies, but it does keep the number of them quite low, especially
Mm-hmm.
whenever there's an outbreak. So if you saw in the beginning of the video, the ants, they can recognize the infected, and they get them away, because if that ant
Mm-hmm.
crawls up over the colony and the spores come down, then everybody gets infected. So they
Mm-hmm.
recognize that. Yeah, and I mean it truly is. It's very much it's a zombie mushroom.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
also there are mushrooms that can grow on human beings also.
No, no. So right now, fortunately, that's not the case. The
Mm-hmm.
case is that they can infect insects because insects are not hot-blooded. They, but humans, the reason
Mm-hmm.
that we can't really fight off a fungal infection when they get into us is because fungi are
Mm-hmm.
way too similar to humans. So if you get a fungal infection, really, really hard to get rid of. And people would know, like, if you get a parasite on your toe, like a fungus infection on your toe, it's so hard to get rid of.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get one in your lungs or in your blood, I'm sorry, but it's almost impossible to kill because they're so similar to us. The thing about fungi is that they don't tolerate our high temperature. So really
Mm-hmm.
around 36 degrees is really too much. But
Mm-hmm.
around 30 degrees is kind of the edge of where a fungus wants to be, and they can tolerate it a little bit harder. But this is what people are concerned about, and they brought a real concern whenever they made this HBO series, The Last of Us. The whole concept there was that cordyceps mushrooms, thanks to
Mm-hmm.
global warming, have adapted the ability to live in hotter environments, and that means that eventually they may be able to adapt the ability to live inside of a human because
Mm-hmm.
they can live in the hotter environments. But right now, it's not true. That hasn't happened, and it's not a worry at the moment. But if global warming keeps happening,
Mm-hmm.
global
Mm-hmm.
warming, if it keeps getting hotter and hotter, then that's
Mm-hmm.
something that mushrooms are known to adapt quite quickly to environmental changes. So it's something that you could expect as a potential plausible outcome, is that fungi could then start tolerating the human heat and start growing inside of us. That wouldn't be very nice.
See, I have also heard some cases, mostly the cancerous cases. There are
Mm.
cancerous cell which is growing on lungs along with some sort of mushroom infection also. I mean, some fungal infection also. This is I have heard, like, so is that something? What is happening there? Like,
Well, there are a couple of different things that fungi can get into the lungs of people with weak immune systems, and the
mm-hmm,
immune system isn't strong enough to fight away spores. So in some cases, you can get lung infections from fungi, but really it's
Mhm.
the immunocompromised people who have a worry there. The other people who are at risk are ones who work on mushroom farms, and
Mhm.
they're amongst the spores often, and they work in a harvest room all day long, sort of. That's where you can get what's called mushroom grower's lung, because you're basically just inhaling lots and lots of spores all the time. And
Mhm.
just through the law of numbers, the law of averages, some of those might develop the ability to germinate. And in
Mhm.
the case of where you've inhaled lots and lots of spores, your
Mhm.
body creates mucosal linings, like mucus. And just like whenever you inhale spores
Uh-huh.
into your nose, you get mucus and you can blow them out. That's your body's line of defense. That happens in your lungs as well. So when you inhale lots of spores, you can get lots and lots of mucus. And in the case of developing lots of mucus,
Mhm.
there's the ability for the temperature gradient within your body to be a little bit different in your lungs. So you're not
Mhm.
absolutely at your hottest in the mucus, and you might be able to germinate some mycelium in that mucosal lining. So,
Mhm.
that's a thing. Mushroom growers should always wear masks because they're exposed to spores all day long.
Mhm. Also, there are mushrooms that grows. I mean, that glows on the when night, like it will glow like very
Yeah.
ideal. Is that those
Yeah.
mushrooms are edible? We can eat those. So.
No, no, the glowing mushrooms typically aren't known to be edible. I will
Mm-hmm.
present and show Omphallotus nidiformis. Give us a second and I'll share my screen. Boom. Share here. So this is a glowing mushroom, Omphallotus nidiformis. And pull up some images there, and you can see. So these have what's
Mm-hmm.
called bioluminescence. Um, as far as I know, they are toxic and will cause massive stomach upset, and you'll be vomiting for quite a while. But I don't think that they are toxic to the
Mm-hmm.
point of actually being deadly. But
Fatal.
they will cause, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they would cause stomach upsets. But here you go. You can see this is here in Australia. They
Mm-hmm.
have these
Mm-hmm.
Omphallotus nidiformis. So they grow. These are decomposers. They grow on decaying wood stumps.
Mm-hmm. And the psilocybin mushrooms that grows like many people take this as a psychedelic. Is there any a side effect, like which you have observed, like for example, if we are keep on smoking a cigarette, like for it has
Hmm.
nicotine in it and it can give you some sort of cancerous
Oh yeah,
cancerous
yeah.
cells, yeah. So these sort of things, like, because when we are taking the magic mushroom, actually what happens, the mind got expanded, and it can give an opportunity to think through. I mean, if you're taking in that particular way, not just to get into high and listening to some music, no, but if you are taking into some meditative way, this can actually give you a lot more perception about life and things like that, and it can open up your mind also. But what happens if somebody is keep taking this?
Yeah, well, what we have as far as the data around people who continuously consume mushrooms is that
Mm-hmm.
they have essentially prolonged beneficial side effects. And we haven't, I don't know of any research that's saying that there's any long term detriment, only research that's saying that there is long term benefit,
Mm-hmm.
especially around trauma, especially around people with post traumatic stress disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Those types of traumas. Other ones that have really good benefits are people with terminal illnesses, because mushrooms, you can see here, I've got a little diagram up that's been pretty famous, where
Mm-hmm.
on the left hand side it shows, this is sort of a map of normal brain activity, and then when you
Mm-hmm.
have a psilocybin mushroom here on the right hand side, you see a lot more different brain activity. So what actually has been recorded to happen is, when you're normally operating your normal brain function, they call a default mode network. So
Mhm.
it's like things that run just quite normally, and it is like your ego and who you are and all things like that. Whenever you have the serotonin like psychedelic mushroom, this comes
Mhm.
in and it changes the way that you actually think, and it
Mhm.
changes your perception of all kinds of different things, your perception of who you are, your perception of time and space, and your
Mhm.
perception of how you relate and connect to reality. So what it does is it makes you look at
Mhm.
potentially traumatic situations with a different view. And when you can look at things with a different view, it helps you to not only accept them, but process them. And this is why it's been really good for people with trauma or post traumatic stress, but also for those who have terminal illnesses, because they become sort of comfortable with the situation and fear the outcome much less because they're able to think about it in different ways.
So the thing is like I have shared you the story which we have given the magic mushroom to the cat. The cat was all of a
Yeah,
sudden jumping around like like becoming
yeah.
so crazy. So what exactly like what kind of components are getting developed in our brain when we are consuming the magic mushrooms?
Well, psilocybin, I'll show the physical structure. So, psilocybin molecule. When we pull that up,
Mm-hmm.
we got here. We want to show one that is very. It shows that. Let's see. Tryptophan, tryptophan, and serotonin. So if you can see over here on the right hand side, psilocin and
Mm-hmm.
psilocybin, they have a very similar structure to this compound right here called serotonin. Now,
Mm-hmm.
serotonin is one of the compounds that your brain uses for a specific type of feeling. So serotonin effect. Let me show you this. What does serotonin do? It influences your mood, sleep, appetite, digestion. It influences so many different things, and it actually
Mm-hmm.
it influences the way that you experience different
Mm-hmm.
experiences. And so when this neurotransmitter, instead of serotonin, comes into your receptor,
Mm-hmm.
you then have a different perception of reality. Now, it doesn't get broken down in the way that you would break down alcohol or sugar or another macronutrient. That's not the same. This is a neurotransmitter. So what it does is
Mm-hmm.
it comes and it sits in a neuron
Mm-hmm.
for a period of time, and then after a certain period of time, your neuron lets it go, and then it
Mm-hmm.
will leave your body. So you'll urinate it out. You don't do
Mm-hmm.
anything. It doesn't have any downstream effects other than your feeling about what you experience. So you can
Mm-hmm.
have all sorts of a range of different experiences on psilocybin. And
Mm-hmm.
depending on whether or not you integrate that, you might have a
Mm-hmm.
traumatic experience because it can be quite challenging. They call it a hero's journey whenever you have,
Mm-hmm.
a good large amount of mushrooms, and then, you experience some of the darkness that you don't normally think about. You don't have the ability to stop that kind of thinking, but also you
Mm-hmm.
experience like deep connections with nature and with other people and with, your surroundings. So
Mm-hmm.
you get presented with a whole balance of different things,
Mm-hmm.
and it is up to you to then sort of integrate that, take in and realize that, that was simply a psychedelic experience,
Mm-hmm.
and it's on you to go forward and do what you will with it. For most people,
Mm-hmm.
they find that integration is actually quite cathartic and it makes them feel very good. And you get what's called an afterglow. So after you have a
Mm-hmm.
large amount of psilocybin, typically you go through some difficulty, but then you get through the experience and you realize that you're a little bit stronger in some sort of way because of it. And then after that, not only have you experienced those psychedelic effects, but During them, you
Mm-hmm.
extended your bandwidth of perception, so you heard more sounds, you saw more colors, you saw
Mm-hmm.
more depth and brightness to tones and sounds and feelings. You could
Mm-hmm.
taste differently. So if you were actually eating on them, you know you had increased experience around taste. So what happens
Mm-hmm.
typically after you have a large dose of psychedelics is that you have an extended period of time where you have that amplified bandwidth of perception, and it's called the
Mm-hmm.
afterglow period. So very, very really, you still get a good
Mm-hmm.
larger perception of colors and a better feeling and stronger taste for a longer period of time. And it's been
Mm-hmm.
shown that people with anger issues that have a large
Mm-hmm.
dose of magic mushrooms, they
Mm-hmm.
are affected beneficially for up to 6 months, where they don't
Mm-hmm.
need anger management after that. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's a really good outcome for people who take these things typically.
Mm-hmm. There are underwater mushrooms. There are mushrooms which can grow inside the sea or river, something that sort. We spoken about
Mushrooms that grow
the
inside of what's
mushrooms.
that?
Yeah, exactly.
What did you say? That mushrooms that grow inside of what?
Water. I mean,
Oh, mushrooms that grow in water.
water. I mean, yeah, exactly. Like for example, the river or sea or ocean or something like that.
Yeah, typically, I'm not aware of any mushrooms that grow submerged in water. Mushrooms have a really interesting ability to create hydrophobic barriers to protect
Mm-hmm.
mycelium. So most of the higher fungi, they're terrestrial. So they're growing in soils, they're growing in wood, they're growing in
Mm-hmm.
decaying organic matter, and they're not necessarily made anymore for growing in water. However, you do have yeasts. So
Mm-hmm.
that's more the unicellular or not the multicellular fungi. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
yeasts, lower fungi that are growing in water, or those that are making um, lichen, like lichen type symbiotes that work with
Mm-hmm.
cyanobacteria per se. So that can grow in water, but I don't know of any mushrooms
Mm-hmm.
that grow in water.
So the also the mushrooms that can actually survive the radiations.
Yeah, yeah. So actually, not only survive it, but actually
Mm-hmm.
utilize the radioactive decay as a
Mm-hmm.
nutrition source. So they actually can grow quite well utilizing that as a form of energy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, like for example, if you want to come to India or Nepal,
Mm,
I mean, you are planning to come in another 1.5 week, I
yeah.
guess so.
Yeah.
So like where and all you want to go, like which part of India where you feel there are a lot of fungis are there, which
Oh,
can be
there's so much.
commercially viable and it can be grow in some part. Like for example, how can you collect how somebody can collect these sponges of this particular fungi and take it and grow in a kind of
Mm,
lab environment. How do you
yeah.
imagine about that?
Well, I think that mushrooms are they're a growing sort of industry in India.
Mm-hmm.
From the perspective of my friend who is a mushroom grower there,
Mm-hmm.
um, mushrooms haven't been really that popular in India prior to this, and they are now
No,
gaining popularity.
no. I am telling you, in India, the
Mm,
mushroom has been used in recreational purposes.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
if we look into the Vedas, there is one kind of drink which is called soma. That is
Mm,
basically intended to connect you to the souls which is been passed before you, and a sort of you to make you to understand the immortality, how it
yeah.
works, how you can come to that core. So this particular drink soma, there is a lot of mushroom is been used in that particular drink actually. This is
You
what
think
I
so?
understood. I read it in the
Really?
Atharva Veda. Yeah, Atharva Veda is a particular book which
Yeah.
speaks about medicines and how all these kind of things is being used. Datura, right? Like it is being
Yeah.
offered to the Lord Shiva. Like
Yeah.
Datura is a psychedelic which is available everywhere in India that can take
Yeah.
you somewhere near to death, and that
Really?
is being offered to the Lord Shiva. So
Okay.
I think it is been used, but nobody has been studied. Like mostly because most of these texts are in Sanskrit, and this
Mm,
Sanskrit is very hard to understand. This is
okay.
one problem.
Well, that
Yeah.
sounds like a job for AI. AI is really good at deciphering old languages.
Yeah, most of the thing. But the problem with the Sanskrit is one single word is it can have multiple meaning. For example, the
Mm,
Hebrew, when they translated the Bible, there is a lot of problem has been happened. They
yeah.
didn't translate it exactly what AI also will struggle in that way because we human beings only made AI, right? So it
Well,
can be
AI
able to
is
do.
actually really good at the underlying pattern recognition that it's very difficult for us to hold sort of more than like
Mm-hmm.
11 different nodes at once. So whenever you start thinking, well, it could have said this and that affects the downstream, and then that could have said this and that affects the downstream, it's really difficult for us to hold the different permutations of
Mm-hmm.
what that could mean. But AI is excellent at making all the different variations of what something could mean, and then isolating what is sensical and what's nonsensical, and it may present you with 10 different versions of what the thing could say. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
if we were to interpret it, we just get lost at, well, the one word could mean 10 different things, so
Mm-hmm.
we don't really know. So AI is really good. I think it's going to help us.
Too
It's
decipher,
interpreted
yeah.
quite a bit that we've been unable
Mm-hmm.
to interpret, and just like whenever DNA became
Mm-hmm.
something that was more affordable, then you get all these new scientific breakthroughs, and you get lots of new information because you have the ability to use it. I think the same thing's going to be with AI. You push a button and allow it to go to work, and it will do the work. It'll get there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
think the Soma is really an interesting one, and I think that what I do understand it is Soma is based on Amanita muscaria. That's the red and white one.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure that most people would be familiar with it, but I've read quite a bit about it. Um, I wonder, do you have this mushroom growing wild in India? And you must have this mushroom growing wild in India because, as far as I know, it is grown
Then,
wild everywhere in the world. So let's show you Amanita
mhm.
muscaria. You'll know as soon as you see it. But
This I
what
saw. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
yeah.
saw. Yeah. This is
So this
also psilocybin.
not psilocybin. It's a different compound. Um, and there are two different compounds in this mushroom, and one of them is believed to be quite dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Ibotenic acid and muscimol are the couple of different compounds. So muscimol is one that I think people recognize as being quite um, trance inducing. So you get like
Mm-hmm.
loops of reality. And then ibotenic acid is GABAergic, and it gives you like really good rest, anti-anxiety, but causes like almost like psychedelic visions in your sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
a couple of different compounds that may be functional in this mushroom, and that I believe are related to so many different folk tales and cultural tales around the world. You can see red and white, the origin of Santa Claus. Reindeer love to
Mm-hmm.
consume this mushroom, and that it's said that they get high. So flying reindeer and Santa Claus, that's an
Mm-hmm.
understandable myth or story. People in the areas where these are found under pine trees, and you
Mm-hmm.
would you would collect them and hang them on the branches of the pine trees to dry out so that you could save them. You can imagine
Mm-hmm.
these decorating a pine tree is very much like a Christmas tree. Also,
Mhm.
there's the tale that these are collected by shaman in some Siberian
Mhm.
nation, where it's in the time of year where it gets really snow packed. They live in yurts, and the yurts have a central smokestack, and often the snow would
Mhm.
pile higher than any door, so you would actually enter and leave the yurt through the central smoke hole in the top. And if you had a shaman
Mhm.
who was actually drying out these mushrooms over a fire and would come in and
Mhm.
collect and change out the mushrooms, they would be crawling in through the chimney. So you get, the correlation to some sort of a figure like Santa Claus climbing down the chimney to remove or to take the gifts or to leave gifts, those sorts of things. You get lots of different tales that can come out of this, that a lot of people accept. And then also, these grow in the time of year, down here, where it's close to Easter. And,
Mhm.
these are growing underneath the trees in the forest. You go out looking for very brightly colored um, Easter eggs, essentially, because this mushroom actually has an egg form.
Mhm.
Amanita muscaria egg. You see, if I look that up, I just pull up the image on that egg form. Oh, I accidentally clicked too much. Amanita muscaria egg,
Mhm.
and then pull up. I'm having some internet flow here, but you can see these mushrooms
Yeah.
grow inside of an egg. And these are amanita mushrooms that
Okay.
are growing inside of an egg form. So you can see that they might be the progenitor of a Easter egg story. And they're
Mhm.
the what was her name? Ishtar, related to Inanna, this old
Mhm.
mythical pagan myth that turned into Greek myth. Ishtar took the
Mhm.
form of a dove, but then she would,
Mhm.
in spring, take the form of a rabbit, and the rabbit remains to have
Mhm.
the ability to lay eggs like the dove. So, the Easter rabbit who lays Easter eggs,
Mhm.
Ishtar bunny. There's so many overlapping stories. And one more of this mushroom, the Amanita muscaria, is the origin of the phoenix. Have you heard of the fabled phoenix?
Yeah,
So
it will the bird phoenix, it will come
the
out from the
bird in
fire.
flame, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So this mushroom grows through lots of different stages, and
Mhm.
you can see it grows quite fiery, and it goes
Mhm.
through reds and golden colors, and it actually spreads its wings, and it spreads the two sides of its cap up high, and essentially the spores become the smoke, and the spores then would birth the next egg, which would then
Mhm.
be the phoenix
Mhm.
rising from the ashes. So it's, so many different cultural tales come from this mushroom alone.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
So I think we can easily communicate with the mushrooms also, because if we imagine the mushrooms are a giant organization, like
Yeah.
they might be having a sort of you know consciousness possible, like.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you think
Mhm.
about any form of network,
Mhm.
fungi are the original network of the planet. They're the first
Mhm.
terrestrial organism to leave the ocean and to actually cause the greening of the planet. And not only
Mhm.
that, they created the first soils, then they
Mhm.
essentially are forming a network between the roots of all the plants. And
Mhm.
neural material is networks
Mhm. Mhm.
of material. It's all networks. So they are the original network, and they're
Mhm.
connected right around the world, long before we ever thought of connecting the planet. So yeah,
Mhm. Mhm.
I think they are a
Mhm.
very intelligent organism.
Mhm.
Of course, the tissue that they have isn't neurons, it's mycelium, and
Mhm. Yeah.
mycelium is sort of the progenitor of all those sorts of structures in my mind.
Mhm. So when we've been talking about the places which you are planning to visit in India, So where
Oh
and
yeah.
all you see, yeah, we can
Well,
go
this time I'm
there.
only going to go to Uttarakhand. I don't
Mm-hmm.
have much time. This is just a very brief business trip going in and out,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully, if the business becomes successful, I'll be visiting
Mm-hmm.
again, and I will want to see lots of different places. But the fact that I get to go
Mm-hmm.
right up next to the Himalayas, that's great because
Mm-hmm.
I want to go mushroom hunting over there.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then visiting my friend who has a mushroom farm, that's great. Get some of the mushroom
Mm-hmm.
community over there. They've started to grow morels.
Mm-hmm.
Morels are they're calling them the Gucci mushroom in India, but yeah, he's starting to grow those mushrooms over there. So I
Mm-hmm.
look forward to going to Uttarakhand this time, and then hopefully next time I get to see quite a bit more.
Mm-hmm. So, which areas of India where you feel there is a repository of mushrooms are existing? There are wild one, there are consumable one, and there are some species which is never been explored before, and that can be explored, and things like that. Where do you feel? Which areas of India you feel?
I'm not familiar enough with the geography of India, but anywhere
Mm-hmm.
that there's forests
Mm-hmm.
is the great potential for things that have not had a wide discovery yet. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, anywhere there's forest, mountains are great because elevation gives you higher rainfall. Higher rainfall
Mm-hmm.
meaning you get more mushrooms. So
Mm-hmm.
anywhere that you have forests are definitely the right place to be for
Mm-hmm.
mushrooms.
See, the place which I live in is the bottom of India, the southern part of India, which is basically the rainforest.
Okay.
If you can pull up a map of India, I can show that way.
Yeah, sure. Let me just share.
Yeah, you see the Sri Lanka, Lanka, that side, and the other side of India. Lanka is in the right hand side of you, and in the left hand side of you, there is Kerala. So I live here. This is called as Western Ghat. So this is basically greenery and forest.
Okay.
There is a lot of fungi are there around, in and out.
Let's see. Can I
So
don't
the
know how to.
magic mushroom grows in one of this particular place, Uti.
That's awesome. Let me go to satellite, and that way I can see the forest, and then I will take off
Mm-hmm.
this one. Take off labels. All right. So around this area.
Hello.
So you said Kerala,
Yeah, exactly. This is the area.
Coimbatore, Madurai. You've got Periyar National Park, Rani Forest. Is it around here?
That is Idiki, Munar Idiki, you can see.
Oh, Munnar. Yeah, I see Munnar
Yeah, exactly.
and
uh,
Idukki. Yeah, I see that right here. Yeah.
yeah, this is the
Okay. Yeah.
place
So
where
you
the
have quite a
Asia's.
big area.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, this is, yeah, I have a garden here. This is like, I'm cultivating all the trees, and I'm having a pond here. I'm making sure that this my.
Yeah, this would actually be very good. What is the elevation? Idukki. Yeah. Okay, 600 meters there, 800 meters there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you're actually quite good elevation. This is a great
Mm-hmm.
place for mushrooms. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of magic mushroom also here, actually.
That's great. Actually, right now here in Australia is the season for magic mushrooms as well.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah,
when
cool.
we are talking about protecting mushrooms,
Hmm.
how do someone can like, for example, I found a particular species in the
Yeah,
forest, and that
yeah.
is not been recorded before. and I want to
Yeah.
protect. I want to. I mean, if I keep that in one lab kind of setup, it will go in 10 days or 15 days, things like that.
Yeah.
I need to
Yeah.
create the offsprings. I need to cultivate it. How do
Yeah.
someone can do that actually?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of different ways to do that. One is to create a spore print. So hopefully you find more
Mm-hmm.
than one mushroom, and you can take one, collect the spores,
Mm-hmm.
and label them the finding. You know, you can look online for collection information, all the information you
Mm-hmm.
want to collect. You can,
Mm-hmm.
date, time, location, and then all the different things. You can even make drawings, collect the spores.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
then, if you have the ability to take a tissue culture, then you
Mm-hmm.
could actually preserve that strain and grow the
Mm-hmm.
mycelium. But it gets really, really, really specific and complex if you haven't done it before.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty difficult. So it's either easier to go to someone who can or knows how, or to actually go
Mm-hmm.
through some training, because
Mm-hmm.
it's called aseptic culturing, and you need to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that you don't culture any bacteria or other mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you don't know that you're actually preserving the species, and you want to be
Mm-hmm.
sure. So you need to have like specific equipment to do that. But the best
Mm-hmm.
thing, if you don't know how to do it in a lab setting, to go to somebody else, or at least keep a really good record and the spore
Mm-hmm.
print and drive the specimen. If you dry
Mm-hmm.
the specimen out, you can hold it indefinitely, and then keeping a spore print,
Mm-hmm.
you actually have the genetic material that somebody else could then grow in a
Mm-hmm.
laboratory setting.
So the spore print, how long it can survive?
Yeah, 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 hundreds of years. The spores, as long as they're
Mm-hmm.
kept dry, you can
Mm-hmm.
put them on a bit of foil or a bit of paper, close them up, put them sealed,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll last forever.
Mm-hmm. 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 So yeah, and best wishes for you to come in India, and if possible, test me. Maybe we could connect. I don't know, but yeah,
Okay,
I met. Possible, I can share you some of the mushrooms which has been growing around here, and if you
awesome.
find some,
Yeah,
if you, I could have taken, I can take some spot prints also and see how it
excellent.
goes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You want to say something to our audience which is listening to, and how they can connect with you?
Sure. Well, obviously, my business is called Fable. You've seen my website. It's fablefood.co.
Mm-hmm.
We're also very active on Instagram at Fable Food Co. One word. And I
Mm-hmm.
myself am Jim Boyle's Mushrooms. One word. It's Jim Boyle's
Mm-hmm.
Mushrooms. And yeah, that's because I have a very unique way of cooking mushrooms based on science. So, you can find more about that
Mm-hmm.
on my Instagram.
Mm-hmm. And for the what and all people could connect with you, like for example, to buying the mushroom, to growing the tips, or what sort of
Yeah, yeah, I'm
connections?
open to talk about mushrooms at any time, and it's easy. Yeah, you can
Mm-hmm.
just reach out to me on Instagram or LinkedIn. Either way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You want to say something else?
No, no, I'm good. That was perfect. I just had a nice long conversation. Yeah, you're welcome to reach out to me and have further discussions if you want.
Yeah. Okay. We will connect soon, and maybe I can show you some of the mushrooms which I can find
Yeah,
around in and around of my area, and see, uh, you know,
cool.
what we can
Yeah,
do about uh, this this globe of mushroom.
yeah, for sure. Love to.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.